All right, welcome to the College Soccer Strong podcast. And to be completely honest, this is going to be made up as we go along. We got our first guest today, Sam Eccles. And yeah, Sam, just introduce yourself.
Morning, mate. Yeah, I'm Sam Eccles, former Division One college soccer player. Played 5 years at two different schools, and now uh, assistant coach of EIU men's soccer. And yeah, enjoying the transition between playing and coaching.
Awesome. And where did soccer all begin for you, or football coming from England?
Yeah, so I started playing very young. About 4 years old, I was first part of a team kicking a ball, and then competitive. Uh, Professional like soccer started about 12. I joined Sheffield United Academy at 12. It works a little differently in England. You can join an academy from under nines. I think even pre academy starts even younger now. And so I started in that sort of professional pathway at 12, played 2 years at Sheffield United, then got released at 14 and got picked up immediately by Barnsley just up the road until I was 16. So, I mean, we can go into a bit about the academy system, but it's pretty brutal. Um, and then 16 released again by Barnsley before at the scholarship decision, and then just playing county non league football, and got lucky enough to get recruited to the States.
Awesome. So we'll get into the transition out to the States. But in terms of that experience of getting released not only once but twice, how was that for you to bounce back from the first time and then the second time?
Um, yeah, the first time was a bit easier. Obviously, nobody wants to hear that you're not good enough in some capacity. For me, at 14, it was not aggressive enough, which is hard to hear as a young player. Obviously, it's your dream to become a professional footballer. But that one was a lot easier to bounce back from because I went straight into trials with other clubs, as you do. Um, the second one was a bit harder because at 16, that's sort of if you get a schoolboy, that's you taken the next step towards professional football in England. And so that one, I was considering, all right, maybe football's not for me at that point. But then just tried to, keep working, find my love for the game again, and didn't take long. I was playing county stuff, scoring goals, playing non-league well above my age group with senior men that have played at decent levels, and that's where I kind of learnt the type of player you have to be to play amongst men, which helped me, stood me in good stead for um, playing in America. But yeah, it's really hard. I mean, getting released is not an easy process, and it takes a lot to bounce back from that.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that as well, especially that under 16s one where you feel like you have your life planned out for the next 2 years, and then it can so quickly just be taken away from you.
Yeah.
In terms of the under 14 release and being told that you weren't aggressive enough, did you feel like as a player you had a clear pathway on what to improve, or did you feel it was quite unclear for what you wanted to work on next?
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, what is aggressive enough? It was pretty vague, because you say, "Oh, you don't score enough goals with your right foot." I'm left-footed, and so right, I'll go and practice my right foot. You know clearly what your objective is. Aggressive enough? I don't know. It's a bit vague. I've never been the meanest player on the field. Can't remember the last time I got a yellow card, to be honest. But aggressive when you're um, sprinting one on one against someone, having to push them off the ball, rather than aggression in the challenge. It's hard to know which was which. I think I have a better understanding of what they were trying to tell me now from a coaching point of view. Aggressive in the press, maybe like really wanting the ball. I believe that was probably the lines they were going down. But yeah, at 14, being told that and not much else in just a, I don't know, 15-minute meeting, it's very hard to know what you need to improve on.
Yeah, definitely. I always felt like for me the clarity of what to go away and work on was so difficult, and it almost you end up with no direction on where to follow. For
Yeah,
me, that was not getting a contract after trialing the first time at Southampton and not really knowing what to go away and work on. And then getting released by Yeovil at 16, I still felt like I had no direction to go and work on other than just being told, oh, you're not tall enough, which for me, I feel like is almost a cop out and just easy thing to throw at someone, or just
yeah,
being general and saying to someone, oh, you're not aggressive enough, and not giving them like a really clear roadmap on how to actually go and develop as a player, because ultimately that's what all young soccer players, young footballers want to go and do.
yeah, yeah. And just because you are no longer part of the team doesn't mean that their coaching responsibility ends. I mean, as a coach, you always want to develop players, and I think it would be a very useful thing for maybe a little bit of feedback, maybe like breaking it down what they actually mean and going away and saying, look, like you're not a bad player. You're here in the first place. Maybe work on this, this, and this, and maybe we'll see you in a few years. You know?
Yeah, and I think that's probably what helped me when I left Southampton is we got transitioned straight into Yeovil as a connection,
Right.
and then they were tracking our progress across those 2 years, whether it was something that was realistic to go back and sign a contract at Southampton, or if it was just to keep track of the players. But for me, it felt like that gave a little bit of clarity. And I also think that we're talking here about 2 years in a club and then being released. And you've got to think that some players, like we said at the start, you're joining an academy at 8 years old. You can go and play all the way through 16, 18. That's been literally your entire life, your entire childhood
Yeah.
within, like you say, one 15-minute conversation. And that all just ends and you're left to kind of go and figure it out on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. The academy system is definitely it's definitely brutal.
Cool. So when you got released from 16s and you go into playing men's football, what did you learn about that process?
Um, I the biggest thing I learned was how to use my body. The technical side of the game isn't as present with men's football as it is academy football. Academy football, you've got to be quick, technical, and you need to retain the ball. Men's football, it's similar in the fact that don't give up the ball because you're at fault. You're going to get a screaming at. But to retain the ball, you've got to hold off someone who's twice your size, twice your age. So being able to get your arm out, make yourself a big frame. I'm 6'2", but these guys were massive. I'm using my arms, using your arse, and protecting the ball, especially as a striker. That was the biggest thing I learned. And then just mental toughness in the fact that, all right, they're saying these things because they want to win. That's all it is. I mean, some of them picking up a paycheck at the end of the day and bonuses on the line. All right, you've got to be mentally tough to right and just water off a duck's back. I'll get the next one, especially as a striker. You miss a chance, you just got to trust that another one's coming.
Yeah, definitely. And how did you find the difference in pressure between playing men's football and academy football?
It was a little bit less pressure on me, I would say, because academy football is filmed constantly. I felt like I don't know how you felt at Southampton and Yeovil. I felt like if you're gonna film everything and scrutinize everything, then yes, I mean you should be 100% in training all the time. But it just felt like a bit of over analyzing instead of balancing analyzing with enjoyment, especially at a young age. And with men's football, you don't have that sort of setup. So I enjoyed not having the camera on me at all times. But then the pressure came in. All right, we're on a Saturday and we need 3 points.
Yeah, I think it's a very different type of pressure, and I think that also as you grow up and you go through the system, you like we think about in terms of player development, we look at pretty much purely technical. We're saying how good are they technically? Are they ready technically to go and play? And I think that for most coaches, it's a given that we're going to expect someone to develop technically over the course of their career. But I know
Mhm.
for myself, I often found myself putting a lot of pressure on me to be mentally at the level of a professional footballer, even at the age of 12, 13, 14. And I think a lot of young players are almost confused as to why they don't feel confidence. But I also think that confidence is something that is going to grow as you get more experience in the game. Just like as you progress technically, you're going to get better. As you progress physically, you're going to be able to cope with the physical demands of the game. And I think
Yeah.
young players understanding that that confidence is going to build as they go through the system as well.
Yeah, I mean, confidence is a massive thing at any level of the game, and yeah, it isn't something that a lot of players are aware of. Maybe it's a subconscious thing that you've had a good game last game, and so this game you're going into it feeling great. And although, at the academy level you have some sessions outside of football, maybe on the mental side, the tactical side, maybe during day release, but it isn't. I don't think it's something that's touched on enough. Maybe just sort of little tricks for your brain to cope with the pressure that's added on. Like, all right, maybe I had a bad game last game. What can I do? Or it's visualization. However you may prepare to get yourself in a confident state for the next game. Because yeah, that's not. I don't think that's done enough at the youth level. Because I mean, all players struggle with confidence loss at one point in their career.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think, to be honest, most players are just left to figure it out by themselves and find something that works for them to help build their confidence.
Yeah.
As a striker, you mentioned the pressure of obviously having a chance and having to take it. And some games you're going to take that, you're going to be the hero. Other games you're not going to take it, and everyone's going to be looking at you and putting the blame on you. Is there any techniques that you found useful for yourself to maintain confidence that you think a youth player could benefit from as well?
Um, yeah, I didn't used to be the best at it. I used to miss a chance and I used to throw my arms up in the air, shake my head. So the first thing I would say to any young player in that sort of attacking position, or I mean, it's applicable to defenders, goalkeepers as well, maybe letting in a chance or you make the mistake for giving up a goal, would be body language. And just keeping that positive body language because you might not feel confident yourself, but if you look confident, everyone around you goes, "All right, that's he's unfazed. That doesn't matter to him. He knows he's going to get another chance." And then that then brings confidence. You're like, "Oh, I mean, I start believing I'm going to get another chance." And then the second one is just telling yourself, "It's all right. I'll get another one." It can be the 90th minute, and you still could get another chance. And so it is never over until the final whistle, and you've always just got to believe there's going to be another chance, and you're either going to make up for a mistake or you're going to be the hero. And I mean, that's the beauty of football, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I personally really like your example of using the body language. I think it's almost an impossible task to think yourself out of a thinking problem. So,
Yeah,
like, for example, if you're lacking confidence and you're just trying to think yourself out of that problem, it's really difficult. But giving something to a young player that's really applicable, like the body language, anyone can do it. It doesn't require much thought at all if
hmm
they just commit to doing it. And another benefit I see of doing that is if you can show yourself through your body language, you're still standing tall, shoulders back, head up, you're signaling to other players on the pitch as well to still give you the ball.
yeah,
Whereas if you're looking around as a player on the pitch and you're seeing someone with their head down, they're shying away, they don't want the ball, they're not going to get the ball, they're not getting another chance in that experience.
yeah, yeah. It's a great point, and immediately following a mistake, getting on the ball and keeping it simple as much as possible is a great way to build that confidence back towards the next opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Just giving someone like actionable steps to be able to do it. So if we're talking to a youth striker there, you miss a chance, can you first of all show that you have a positive body language? Then the next time you get the ball, can you keep it simple to rebuild that confidence as soon as possible as you go through?
Exactly.
So going back to the transition into the men's football and feeling like the pressure had been lifted off you a little bit. Did you find that your enjoyment of the game kind of began to grow again at that point?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And because at the academy level, I don't know if many people know, younger than 16, up until 16, you don't play for anything. Your games don't count. There's no league table, there's no points on the line. And so going from that to actually having the competitiveness in the games on a weekend was something that made me enjoy it more. You know, the feeling of winning, the feeling of scoring, winning goals. And then obviously the level was a little bit easier for me as a young player, being a bit quicker than people. Um, and, you know, just feeling that appreciation from older players and getting advice from older players just added to the enjoyment and, you know, the learning experience of playing men's football.
Yeah, definitely. And I can relate to that as well. I think coming out of playing academy football, going back into just playing like men's football, where it's you don't have that pressure of feeling like you're constantly trying to earn a contract. And I can remember playing my first like semi-competitive game again and just coming off the pitch actually smiling and being happy and feeling like I'd loved the experience of playing again,
Yeah,
have all of that pressure removed there.
definitely. Yeah, yeah.
So when you were released at 16, was it straight away a transition into just playing men's football, or did you try and get contracts elsewhere as well?
I had offers from a few lower division sides, um, and it was kind of a toss up between, do I go and pursue that as, all right, you do a schoolboy scholarship and you get a BTEC level 3 in sport, or do I stick with my A levels, carry on in education, and then play non league? And so I kind of made that decision before even doing any trials. And I thought, I'm going to stay with my education um, because it's always tough. I mean, they say you have to sacrifice everything to be a professional. And in most cases, that's true. But at one point, you've got to decide, is it worth the risk? It might be worth the risk if you're getting released from a Premier League academy and you're going down to Cat 2 maybe. But I was just kind of weighing up my options, continuing my education, and I'd made the decision I'm just going to stick in non-league football. And if I do progress, it's going to be up the football pyramid that way rather than through an academy system.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of young players don't even consider. I know for me, the like as much as I always put a lot of effort into my education, took it seriously. For me, in your situation, if I'd been offered any contract, whether it was Cat 2, Cat 3, I would have taken it. And I felt like for you there, just making a good decision to support your future and going into that and committing to that route maybe eases the transition slightly. I felt like once I was then rejected from Yeovil, I went to around 5 more clubs, going on trials, playing games for them, and that rejection after rejection after rejection then almost makes that process even harder to a point.
Yeah, I mean, the trial process in itself, if you're on a month's trial, 6 week trial, that's a brutal procedure where for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you've got to show the very best of yourself to try and earn a contract. And if you're doing that 4 or 5 times, that's mentally that's got to be very draining.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so once you were playing in non-league and looking to work your way up there, When did the thought and the opportunity of playing soccer in the US even come about for you?
Well, it was sort of a unique situation. I always spoke about it with my dad that it was a possibility. We've already always kind of dreamt about it because oh, you earn a scholarship and you go to America to play for free essentially. That's the dream. And then my county coach, I was playing for South Yorkshire Schoolboys. My county coach had a friend who was a Division One college coach looking for a striker, and so I was fortunate enough that he was in England recruiting. He grew up not maybe 20 minutes from where I was, and so they came on a recruiting trip to England, and he needed a striker, and just got in contact with my coach and came to watch a game and a couple of training sessions, and I think I scored four maybe in the game, and had a really good couple of training sessions. So it was really just pure luck. I mean, sometimes you need a bit of luck in this game, and yeah, I got lucky. He came on a good day, and no recruiting agency didn't email any coaches. I was already committed to a UK university to go and study and probably play some books football. But no, it was completely happenstance.
And once you got that offer to go, was it an easy decision to take it, or were you weighing up the options with continuing playing in England and carrying on the education there?
It was it was pretty easy. Although I had um, my dream university in England, really Loughborough, very good at sport, had the perfect um, major program degree that I wanted, and but as soon as I got that offer and it was something that you dreamt about as a kid, um, yeah, it was very easy until then COVID came about, which made things a little bit harder, threw a spanner in the works. But no, as soon as the offer came in, yeah, it was maybe a day's worth of thinking about it, and then it was a yes.
Yeah, I think obviously the a lot of young players listening to that would be thinking that's the dream, just kind of getting that bit of good fortune, that bit of luck, like you say. But do you feel like leading up to that, you're earning that luck through the work that you're putting in, continuing to develop in non-league?
Yeah, I think I mean the luck was a mixture of persistence in football and then persistence in education, really, because I guess not a lot of people know that if you have good grades, it helps your chances of making it economically viable exponentially better. If you've got good grades, the more money you get from the school, scholarship wise, and then that can be then supplemented by your playing ability. And so, yeah, in hindsight, continuing with my A levels was a very good decision. I didn't know it at the time, but yeah, keeping both options open and working hard in both areas, I maybe then caused that bit of luck.
Yeah, I think definitely. And like you say, the education side of things is so important for any young player looking to go out to the US because you're just keeping so many more options open. And like you say, the
Yeah,
academic scholarship can make up a big proportion of a lot of players that are going out on full rides or big scholarships there.
yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And what do you think was the key things that you learned playing in England that helped you the most with that transition out into playing in the US?
Um, that's a good one. I guess the biggest thing that helped me the most, that set, I think, the European players apart from the American players, is you have probably more contact time on the ball. Technical wise, you're maybe slightly ahead on average. The mental toughness from going through a lot of rejection in the academy system's got to be part of it, and then just that ability to play with players that are older than you. I mean, you're going in at 18 years old, and your oldest players maybe 22 and up. So you've got I know they say past 18 it's all the same, but it really isn't. I mean, these guys have had 5, 6 years more time in the gym, and you're trying to shield them off the ball. They're trying to knock you off the ball, and you go flying. And so, yeah, knowing how to use your body, even if you're got a small frame, you can still shield the ball effectively. Yeah, using your body. So those three things I would probably say stood me in the best stead.
Yeah, I think for me as well, I can relate to that in terms of building up a level of physicality by playing men's football in England makes a huge difference. And I know that was something that for me also helped me in my recruiting process was coaches feeling a little bit more confident that you could come out and cope with the level of physicality, which is probably the biggest difference of moving from, say, an academy style of football to a college soccer style of football.
Yeah, no, definitely. But the one thing that I'd say was definitely lacking was, and I will hold my hands up and say I got warned, is from my area at 18, I was, one of the fastest. I was pretty rapid as a kid, and then getting to America, playing college soccer, you'd think half of these people, competed in the track and field as well in the spring semester. The game is very quick, and so I mean, I'm sure we'll get onto this kind of roll on roll off subs and all the kind of niche rules that we have in college soccer. But that was one thing. Strength wise was one thing, but speed wise is a whole different ball game. And that was, yeah, definitely took me by surprise how quick, especially some of the centre backs were.
And how did you find that as a player? Obviously, you've gone from something that was a big strength in yours, and I'm sure you relied on a fair bit in games, and now that strength that was maybe that much of a difference is now down to something a lot smaller. How did you
Oh,
cope with that change? And also, is there anything you wish you'd done sooner leading up to that?
yeah. No, it was definitely a big shock because running past people with ease to then constantly fighting for the ball is, it's a hard thing to kind of adapt to. And it probably took me 2 years to adapt. Um, and so, yeah, I wish I would have maybe leading up to. Although, I mean, I will give myself a bit of grace. I was meant to go out and play summer league before we started, and then COVID got in the way. But yeah, playing in lead up, uh, just kind of working on my speed, trying to keep it consistent, and maybe trying to figure out mechanisms to adapt my game to maybe, all right, you might have to hold the ball up a little bit more. You might have to win more aerial duels and kind of figure out ways around running past people. Maybe you have to work on your feet, technical moves to get past people a little bit more. But I will give myself a bit of grace. We were in lockdown.
Definitely. And in terms of the transition out to play in the US away from just the soccer side of things, how did you find the move? Obviously, you're moving thousands of miles away from your family, your friends, you're living in a completely different location, a different style of culture. How was that move for you?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, it's not easy packing up and leaving, arriving with just a suitcase to a completely different place. But I did enjoy it. I knew what I was kind of getting myself into. You're gonna go and study every day, play every day. I mean, it was the dream, really. Um, so it was sometimes hard. You're homesick, but after a few weeks, I think being so far away really helps because you can't go home. You know your situation. You're there for at least half a year until Christmas or summer, or you're there for the whole year, and so you accept it. You find pleasure in the small things like the FaceTime calls. But yeah, I think moving that far away built my independence, and kind of shaped me as a person. I think I would recommend it to anybody really. even if it's you're living in New York and you're going to school on the West Coast. It's I think it's a really good thing for a young 18-year-old.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, like, obviously, as an international player, we come over and that's the norm for us. We know that you're going to be thousands of miles away from home. Like you said, you're forced to adapt to your new situation. There's no way that you can go back when you want to go back. And that's what forces you to figure it out and end up loving it out there. But why do you think that so many American players often tend to stay closer to home in terms of their college choices?
Um, I think it's a mixture of you don't want to be far away from your family, which I completely understand, and a mixture of those are the schools that are recruiting in that area, and kind of that's the pool of players that they're pulling from. Maybe resource wise, maybe just ease of travel wise. And so that's the schools that are seeing them play the most. And I guess, you've got a higher chance of getting into those schools, or they know family members who've been to those schools and it's a tradition. There's a lot of factors, but I would say, yeah, the biggest one is maybe that those schools are recruiting in those areas and those players aren't necessarily putting themselves out to schools in, wider afield.
Yeah, I think there also seems to be a trend in recruiting for a lot of schools in the sense that you have some schools that are very focused on recruiting transfers, you have some schools that are very focused on recruiting internationally, and then you have other schools that are focused on recruiting locally. And perhaps it's harder for a American player to go further afield where the coach isn't looking like locally, but they're looking at internationals rather than other Americans from around the country.
It's really tough, and it's a point I was discussing with another coach maybe a couple of weeks ago, saying that young American players are, they're at a real disadvantage post COVID. That COVID year that all players got who didn't play in the fall of 2020, and that kicked everyone into the portal. That's had a knock on effect now that coaches are seeing graduate students in the portal and using it to rebuild a program, but then also using it as a sort of winning formula. If you can bring in these 22, 23-year olds once or once a year or once every 2 years to kind of, I don't know, outmuscle the opponents, it's very hard to, as a young freshman, especially in America, to kind of break into these teams. And I was even discussing if, roster caps for international players was a good idea for American soccer in general, just to try and get more homegrown talent into these teams, because it does seem a little unfair that it's that saturated with older European players that are coming over that might have even played and got paid to play as, you know, 16 to 18-year olds coming over at 21. It's very hard to break into those teams. But yeah, putting yourself out there and, you know, developing your speed, physicality, it's only going to help you compete against these guys.
Definitely. I'd love to get into the idea of roster caps and capping international players because it's obviously something that floats around social media quite a lot. You're obviously a player that benefited from a fifth year. I'm a player that's benefited from a fifth, a sixth, and a seventh year if I wanted to. Um, so obviously, I can't speak too negatively of it. But what do you think would be the best solution in terms of getting a cap in place? Because I made a post the other day and it was along the lines of when we look at American football, we look at basketball, we look at baseball. The best players are mainly American in the grand scheme of things. And those best players are then going on to being the best players in the country and, if not the world as well. Even when we go down and look at women's college soccer, you've got the top players playing at UNC there, at other top schools who are going on to represent the national teams. Whereas when we then look at the level of men's college soccer, it is a very good level. It is a very good standard. But even the guys that are getting recruited and drafted in the top 50 draft spots, those guys, a lot of them aren't even able to play in the MLS. They're going down and playing in MLS next or the reserve teams or however it works there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, don't get me wrong, it's the height of hypocrisy coming from an international student who played 5 years of college soccer. But, after coming out of it and looking back and looking how the college soccer kind of rosters are developing, I can't remember. Correct me if if you know it. The team in Division One, it doesn't have a single American on the roster.
Missouri State, I believe.
Missouri State, and so you know, in my head, you either need a, I think, a maximum number of international players would be an easier thing to implement than a minimum number of American players, because in my head, you should have more American players than international players on your roster. If that's, you know, if you're an American soccer institution, you want your best players coming through the system. Just like in England, I mean, yes, we recruit from the whole world because we have that capacity, but a lot of homegrown talent is coming through these best academies. And so if you're US soccer, you need these best players coming through, yes, MLS next, but the college system as well, because people develop at an older age than lots of people who get released from academies still go on to play professionally all around the world. And so, yeah, it is a tough one because if you have a maximum number of international students, maybe I never come to the States. But I would maybe cap it at 11.
Yeah, so I agree with you to an extent, but I will push back a little on what do we want the college soccer system to be? Do we want it to be somewhere that like we're helping American players come and play college and we're going to say that college soccer is the top level. Once you play that, there's no real pathway into the professional leagues if we're removing the competition there. And my other concern is, do we end up with a situation where we're capping international players? So coaches are going to put a lot of scholarship into fewer people. And we end up with a situation where you have the international starting 11, and then you have a bunch of American cheerleaders essentially who are then just making up the squad.
It's true. I mean, it's an impossible scenario, and I don't really know what's best. You make a good point with, like, all right, if you've only got a limited number, you pour the scholarship in. But I mean, don't get me wrong, there's, ample amount of American talent, and soccer is definitely on the rise. And I'm seeing more and more players. But that's my worry is now soccer is growing in America for kids that maybe are picking it over football, over basketball, and they're going through the MLS Next pathway maybe, and they're trying to get recruited to these teams, and then all the recruiting for these American universities is done in Europe or in Asia, then it's hard to find the balance between, all right, do we want homegrown talent coming through and sacrifice competitiveness, or do we want to keep it competitive but then we're completely saturated by international players? It's a very hard balance.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing that I always find myself coming back to is just how inaccessible soccer is in the US and just the extortionate amount of money that it costs to play. Like when I think of myself growing up as a kid in England, if you're playing for your local team, it's free or you're paying like £5 in subs.
Yeah.
When you get signed by an academy, you're not paying anything. You're getting everything and anything you want essentially handed to you. You're getting travel, you're getting like boots, you're getting equipment for tracking, everything you want. And then when you go to even the best, well, some of the best players in America, and they're having to pay $10,000 a year just to play soccer, it's straight away you're taking the pool of people that it is accessible from like here and you're narrowing it down to there. And then you're trying to pull talent out of a much smaller area instead of pulling across the whole country.
Yeah, this is one of my biggest frustrations because football, I mean, well known working man's game. I mean, it's the people's game. People play it on the street all over the world. It shouldn't cost thousands of dollars to play for a club team. Um, and yeah, it is a real shame the cost of coaching in America. I mean, I know a lot of people benefit from it. It's a business at the end of the day, but yeah, it is definitely a big limitation because you are then having only the wealthier people, maybe middle upper class people, being able to afford coaching, and it yeah, it shouldn't be that way. And again, it's the question of, well, how can we solve this problem? Because where does then the coaching come from? I mean, it's volunteers, it's people who give up their time, like people do in England, coaching on for a Sunday league team. They're completely voluntary. They're giving up their time to help coach kids, and so it is definitely a problem. They are losing a lot of talent because I would say a good proportion of players coming through the academy system are in England would have no shot of doing the same thing in America because they're using football as an escape from their situation. And in my opinion, that's what drives them to be the best. If football's the only thing you have, or your sport is the only thing you have, that is such a powerful driving force to go on and be the best because you're going to sacrifice everything. You're going to put all your time into being the best. And I think that, I mean, you see it in basketball in the States. You see it in other sports, but not necessarily in soccer.
Yeah, and I think the even when we look at the system in England, of course, like you say, there's benefits to every side. I think if you're coming from a true working class background and that's the only option you have, then you have that drive to push harder, but you still don't have access to the level of opportunity in terms of coaching and development that someone from, say, more of a middle class background comes from. But
Yeah,
you do have the benefit of if you do excel at that level where it is free or close enough to free to play, then you can very quickly get into the academy system. Whereas in the US, it almost feels like you have that pay to play development, but there's nothing underneath it. And I think one of the biggest frustrations for me, especially working with more like young American players here, is just the insane amount of travel and showcases and flights and hotel stays that people go and do at such a young age. And you got guys going from, say, New York to go and play in Arizona, and they haven't even played teams that are just down the road from them.
yeah, and sometimes they're not there. I mean, I'm live in rural Illinois, and the teams are very sparse. The teams playing locally have to travel 40 minutes to go and play, which is, I mean, it's just because the country is so large. But at the same time, why don't we have then, you know, county teams, regional teams that are clubs coming together to make, games, tournaments more local? Why do we have to fly, all the way across the country to go and play in these showcases? Well, it's because all the college coaches are there recruiting. It's again, it's paying to put your kid in the spotlight of all these college coaches. And does it work? Is it a money making scheme at the end of the day. People can draw their own conclusions, but it does seem like a flawed kind of pyramid where it's inverted, where you have the starting point is, I don't know, the 10% of wealthiest players, and then you have to go up from there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a challenge, and I guess we're not going to solve it today, but hopefully we've got out some food for thought for people. I do want to go back to your journey through college soccer and then get into a little bit more about your coaching now. So, talk to me about your first 2 years playing at Hofstra and your experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great experience. There's a lot of very talented players on the side. I mean, especially in that second year, getting to the Sweet 16. Personally, it was tough. I mean, only getting limited number of minutes, mostly at the end of the first half, was, yeah, really tough. I was competing against very talented striker in Matt Verwinkel, who got drafted, and then later Ryan Carmichael, who got drafted. So I mean, the talent was there, and being only used for 10 minutes of a game, 15 minutes of a game was just extremely frustrating. I mean, anybody who's played the game knows that you can't get into any sort of the rhythm in that time, and you're working off, I mean, scraps basically. And the way the college system works with the roll on, roll off subs, you're not coming on at the end of the half when everyone's tired. You're coming on, and the game's still high intensity as it was in the first 10, 15 minutes. And so that was a real shock because you come from a system playing three subs, and you're, I mean, I was playing 90 minutes, and the game would ebb and flow intensity wise. It would start intense. You play some possession football, it would decline towards the end of the first half, pick up at the start of the second, then decline again. And you get used to that rhythm of playing. And then all of a sudden you're thrown into roll on, roll off. And it's just way quicker just because of how that kind of changes the game. And so it was a big shock, very frustrating. But then, yeah, after that, I kind of got used to it.
Yeah, I think definitely coming in from like a background where you are just playing like a standard game, you either start or you don't start. You either come on as a sub and then you're on, or you don't come on as a sub and you're not used. And going into that completely different system where you do have to adapt to a new style of soccer, and you're also then up and competing against some of the best players in the country as well. It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
So, as you went through your journey there, how did you react in your first year to maybe not playing as much as you'd hoped?
Um, I went away, put in a lot of work in my first summer away from college, went home, played a lot, worked on what I needed to work on. I got a bit stronger, worked on my hold up play, something, that I was given as feedback, work on protecting the ball, holding it up when you come on. And then expected, the starting striker to have gone on and got drafted, and so I was feeling great coming into that second season, especially in preseason. But then I just got unlucky, as you do. The starting striker returned, and that kind of hit me back, like that it might keep happening. And I didn't want to play my 5 years in college, 4 years in college, mostly sat on the sideline. So yeah, decided pretty much after that, um, the end of the preseason, that I had to move on.
Was that a difficult decision, or was it something that you felt like was just the right thing to then do at the time?
A bit of both, really. Difficult in the fact that your scholarship, in most cases, or in some cases maybe is fair, was for all 4 years. and so you have a sense of security in the fact that your school is or that amount of school is covered for the 4 years, and you can get your degree if you still want to. They can't take it away from you. Um, and so giving up that scholarship and jumping into the portal was, I mean, very daunting. And so, in that respect, it was do I, don't I, what's for the best. But I knew that if I stayed and didn't play, that I was only going to get, more frustrated. I needed to go find somewhere new and then start enjoying football again.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, I can relate being in the exact same situation as you at Hofstra almost, in the sense that you're up and while I'm up competing against one of the best goalkeepers in the country and not getting the minutes I'd hope for. And like you said, it's a similar thought process of do I stay with the security when you've built a good life around the school? You enjoy almost every aspect of the life and the school other than just not getting minutes?
Yeah.
Or do you take the risk, jump on the portal, and have no idea where you end up? And how was your experience on the transfer portal?
Oh, I would not recommend it to anybody. No, I mean, it's tough. It's really hard, especially with the amount of people who are in it. Um, it's not a nice process. Just sending out lots of emails, film, contacting coaches, and then sitting and waiting. You're at the mercy of a coach liking your film or liking the little bit of bio you put in your email. Because the most frustrating thing is, how you play. Um, you might not have demonstrated it on the short amount of film that you've got from your time at the said university, and so all they're seeing is maybe some Y Scout clips and the film that you sent them. So you're not really putting across what you can do, and then they're having to maybe take a leap of faith on you as a transfer. And so it was, yeah, very stressful, but thankfully it worked out in the end.
And were you surprised at how competitive the transfer portal was? Because I know for me, going from Hofstra and feeling like we'd had 2 great years there, not necessarily personally, but as a team. And for me, it was the thought process of if I'm leaving a top 21 Division One program, then it's going to be very easy to find somewhere else. And there'll be offers flying in the door. And for me, that wasn't the experience that I had. I don't know about yourself, but how did you react to that process?
Yeah, with hindsight, the transfer portal is used as a stepping stone upwards, and that's sort of what people are looking for. And so players have maybe had a really good season, and they're looking to improve their scholarship or improve their situation, and they've got all the tools, they've got the bargaining power to go and do that. And so that's the people you're kind of competing against. Coaches sort of, they think they know what they're getting through the film and the stats, and then you're having to go in, maybe not playing much from a good program, but then as a coach in that mindset, who do you take? And so knowing that now, it's like, wow, I got really lucky to even get anywhere. But I had the same experience, really, that I was very shocked by the lack of responses um, from coaches, which I don't know about you, most of my offers came from Division Threes, coming from a top 25 program in Division One. And so, yeah, it was very surprising. But then with hindsight, I now sort of understand how the portal kind of works.
Yeah, that's a very great point and one that I actually hadn't thought about much as a player. And I know for me, my experience on the portal was the main problem is just the financial side of things, like getting in offers where colleges are happy to take you in and give you a chance, almost a second chance to prove yourself. But when you're coming from a good scholarship, And for me, that was an important thing that I had to maintain a good scholarship. And if that's not being offered, then you do quickly find yourself dropping down. And I think the point that you make of using the transfer portal as a stepping stone up is a really good one because a lot of the success that I've seen of players in college soccer is using the transfer portal for exactly that, is using it as that stepping stone to the next level, whether it's once, twice, even three times. Looking back on your journey now and giving advice to younger players as well on the offers that they're receiving, how cautious would you be in terms of prioritizing playing time at your first college with that in mind of using it as a stepping stone?
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, you don't know you're gonna play. I mean, coaches will tell you a lot of things to draw you into a program. Let's not forget that players in this day and age are a commodity that's traded between, you know, programs, and that's just something you have to accept and kind of have in the back of your mind and take with a pinch of salt. And so, going on these recruiting visits and talking to coaches, getting a feel for, all right, am I going to be important in this team? Can I see myself playing this system? Do I get on with the coach? Do I get on with the players that are maybe taking me around this program? And getting a feel for sort of the culture, and if you can buy into that culture, is a big thing. And yeah, if you can get a gauge on if you're going to be one of the main players, because it is important, then I would take that over maybe somewhere you're sitting on the sidelines, because if you have a good season, that you're well within your rights this day and age to, you know, use that as a stepping stone.
Yeah, and I think a lot of players are very reluctant to do that, and naturally, you almost just tend towards the best offer that you have. If you have one Division One offer, for the most part, a lot of players are going to take that. But I think a good a framework to use for a player in recruitment is if you have one Division One offer and you've been reaching out to 50, 100, 200 schools, is it realistic that you'll then go and play there? Because if your bulk of your offers are coming from a different level, then perhaps that's a better starting point for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important thing for players to understand. And one thing that I would say to any player, whether they're in the US or abroad, in terms of looking to come out here, is it's quite easy to find your level here with the portal now. I can imagine coming out in the past would be a nightmare if there was no portal and you came out and you just get stuck in one location.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's so easy to go and find the level that is best for you by using the transfer portal to your advantage. And like you say, using it as a stepping stone to get up to the level that you want to be at.
Yeah. And it's an experience. You're The nice thing about the college system is you can transfer your credits. You don't lose any progress on degree. You can still graduate on time. Um, and so finding somewhere you enjoy, especially to start out with, and somewhere you can thrive, on and off the field, is definitely something that young players should prioritize over the big names. If you're maybe just gonna have to walk on, or you might have to wait your chance for 3 years.
Yeah, it's definitely an important thing to think about. So, one thing I do want to get into on the podcast is your transition now going from a player to a coach and what that's been like, and if it's given you any hindsight on what players can do to really stand out in either recruitment or playing.
Yeah, a lot of things that I've learned I wish I knew as a player. Um, I can touch on the recruiting side first, because I didn't really go through it as a player, but I've been through it as a coach. And the first thing I kind of see is players shying away from the ball. If you want to, or if I can see you want to get on the ball, then I'm not going to judge you based on whether you lose the ball or not. You know, having that confidence within yourself to not hide behind defenders and receive the ball in tight areas where other players would shy away, especially midfielders. I see a lot of midfielders dropping down so deep to get on the ball instead of dropping into a pocket and just maybe bouncing it off to relieve a bit of pressure. But having the ability to receive the ball in tight areas and having that confidence is a big thing. And then talking, I mean, I was at a recruiting event a couple of weeks ago and we were inside because of the snow and I could barely hear anybody. And I was saying to one of the guys, one of these, I think it was maybe one goalkeeper talking out of the 22 that were on the field. I mean, you know, as a goalkeeper, that is 90% of your job for the game is talking your players through the game. 10% is when you're called upon, you need to make the stop. And so, talking, being a leader, especially central midfield, central defenders, um, the technical ability, as you said, it comes through coaching, but showing you're kind of comfortable with the basics and you can then make other people better is kind of what we're looking for.
That's a great point, and I think something that so many players struggle with, especially I find it within the American system where there's so many showcases and trials and events with a lot of pressure and a lot of eyes and people watching, is the first place that so many players go. And I know it's a place that I went to myself when I was on trials, is let's make sure that I don't do anything wrong. Let's make sure that I make no mistakes and just do the basics and do the things well. And I think that one piece of advice that I'd give myself if I could go back is almost looking at a trial or a showcase as like a highlight reel. And I don't want to say that in the sense of a midfielder takes it away and like starts doing Maradonas in the midfield and losing the ball, but just using it as an opportunity to really be brave and show the best parts of yourself as a player and not be afraid to make mistakes. And I know that so many people say it like, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. And a lot of people don't take it. One framework that I found helpful is as a youth player, like setting yourself targets for mistakes so that we stop them from being a bad thing and we can look at them as a chance for development.
Mhm.
If you go into a showcase event and you're trying to show the very best parts of your game, 7, 8 times out of 10, that's what's going to make you stand out. And a coach is going to love that confidence from the player as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing I always say is if you fail and you had the right idea, that is better than choosing the wrong decision and succeeding. If the time is right to play that Hollywood pass 40-yard diagonal, then play it. If it's to slip a striker through and it's maybe a 50-50 ball, but it creates a goal scoring opportunity, play it. I don't necessarily, you know, think that players trust themselves to do that under pressure in a showcase. And all right, maybe it doesn't come off, but you're thinking correctly. And that's the main thing. Can kind of looking for those kids with a footballing brain, you know, who understand the game, how it's playing out, when to keep the ball simple, and then when to, all right, we have this team on the back foot. I can maybe play this ball in behind because that centre back's stepped up and he's not watching for drop cues. You know, just those little things. It might not come off, but you can see the intent. You can see they're intelligent football wise, soccer wise. You will stand out.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of players don't think about is if you practice those the 50-50s in the right moments and when you have the right opportunities, as you go and it starts as what used to be a 50-50 ball for you is going to become a 60-40. It's going to
Mhm.
become a 70-30 and keep progressing that way. And ultimately, that's the only way that you're going to develop as a player. If as a player you're just shying away and doing the simple things, then you're really limiting your progress there.
Yeah.
One thing that I am interested in, and I know a lot of people have this question, is the emailing side of things. So I know that when I was coming out to the US, like honestly, the only reason I ever got good offers is by being dedicated and sending emails to coaches.
Mhm.
That being said, when I look back at my email, it was absolutely terrible. I was probably sending 3 paragraphs of writing. I had a highlight video in there that was hours long or something ridiculous. And I think now, as I kind of fall onto the other side, I got sent a video the other day of a goalkeeper, and his highlight reel was 10 minutes long. And I looked at it and just thought, I don't have time to watch this right now. And then a month goes by and it still hasn't been watched. So if we go back and look at that email and someone's trying to give themselves the best shot at getting recruited, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. Highlight reels don't need to be longer than 5 minutes at the very maximum. Just put your, you know, what you deem as your best clips in, and I would say a variety of clips, not just your striker, not just scoring goals. You know, if you're a good striker, we know you're going to be able to score goals, but can you hold the ball up, bring your team into play? Can you pass a ball? I mean, it's these little things are very important for a well-rounded player. In college, you might not be playing striker for your first year. I was playing out and left midfield. Showing different parts of your game very important. And yeah, keeping it, I mean, short and sweet is maybe underselling it, but short, concise, get down to the point, grades, what type of player you are, do some research on the program. I, watch this and I really like the way you play here. It is small things. Yes, it takes a bit of time, but it does make a difference.
Yeah, I think that's a great point about just putting a little bit of effort into the email that you're sending as well by even just showing that you took a look at the program and you know what it is. I always laugh at one of the emails that I sent and I put the wrong program name. And it's just like, even if you had a chance at that point, like there's nothing that's coming out of that. So
No.
yeah, just taking a little bit extra time.
Yeah, definitely. It is worth it. The copy and pasting mass emails, um, they're just not going to get read.
Awesome. So, I mean, we've covered a lot today. Is there anything that you feel like we didn't touch on so far that would be important for a young player to know?
Um, I would say if you're a young player from outside the states, just know that it's a very different style of football that maybe you're used to. Um, it's high paced. It's very physical. You need to be clued up tactically, technically, physically, mentally. It is, draining, and you have to be on top of it as well as on top of academics. And so, prioritizing school is just as important as prioritizing your football and soccer side, and that goes to American high school kids as well. And I don't think people appreciate the jump from high school to college as much as they should, really, because especially mentally, you're going from being the best player in your school, your local club, to just another player, you're just another freshman. And yes, you might have, incredible feet. You might be really quick, but so does everybody at this level. And so working every day on getting 1% better in each area will stand you in very good stead to make that jump, because it is a big jump and people don't really appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, the analogy I always go back to is like when you're a kid, you're just like a big fish in a small pond. Like you can easily be the best player there, but then as you're going up, the fish get bigger and bigger and bigger, and at a certain point, like you have to understand that what got you to this level isn't going to help you get to the next level after that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, looking back on my career, I wish I knew what I know now. And working on those, I mean, nobody wants to work on their flaws because you're admitting that you've got them. But taking the time, putting in the work every day, like you did as a kid. I mean, every day you would play football and you'd get better. It's not a secret formula. You've just got to do it every day as much as you can, and appreciate that you don't get better without it, especially when the margins are so slim at this level.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that it's not a secret formula. And I think that growing up, you always think that there is, and that there is going to be this special exercise that you can do, this special drill that's suddenly going to develop you. And I think that you always just end up coming back to the basics and doing the basics better than everyone else,
Yeah,
doing them for more hours than everyone else. And that is the secret. It's not that much more complicated than that to some extent.
yeah. Unless, I mean, I might not even say unless. You cannot rely on talent. Professional footballers that you see for 90 minutes on a weekend and go, oh my god, he's so talented. Like, how was he never? How is he ever not going to become a professional footballer? But then you don't see the hard work that he put in every single day as a kid, even if they're child prodigies. They're coming through Phil Foden or Jude Bellingham. They're coming through at 16 to 18 into professional game. Nobody does it without that hard work, and especially at the college level, talent is not going to get you to where you want to go.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a great point to end on. So it's been great having you on today. I'm sure
Mm.
everyone's learned a lot as well, not only from your journey as a player, but also helping them understand from a coach's perspective now what people are looking for. So
Yeah,
anything
hopefully.
else you want to add to the conversation?
No, thanks for having me. Enjoyed that.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll see you soon.
See you later.